How's it going, everyone? Welcome once again to another edition of the NASCAR Weekly Podcast. I'm Eric. I am your master of ceremonies tonight. We have a pretty good show in store for y'all. Hope you enjoy it.
Green flag, green flag. I'll roll. He's flipping me out. Yeah, boys, how about that? They cut. Pushes in the wall. He threw it off the track. That's how you do it. Get that second flag, son.
Yeah, so how's it going, everyone? I like I said, I'm your host tonight. We're joined by most of our usual panel, but Danny B is not here at the moment. But we got Darian, Black Flags Matter, over there. We've got Jared, of course, the Iceberg. And then we're joined by two very special guests. We have NASCAR and MDK, as well as M&M Cup Series. How are you both doing tonight? Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, what's up?
I didn't know who you were going to go first.
Yeah,
you go first.
I'm not very good at this.
All
Oh
right.
my god.
I'm doing great. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, I'm also happy to be here. Thank you for letting me come on. And yeah, hopefully I don't hit my head. Let's go.
That's right.
Yeah,
I mean, I will put this to use. All right. I will put this to use.
yeah. Well,
Maybe
we have
right now. I will hit my head on this,
Oh
and
my
I'll
gosh.
show you.
Just start
I will do
We're
it.
good. We're good. We can.
I think we're
we can
okay.
get- We can get that later.
for the time being.
It's for entertainment. It's for
Yeah.
show.
Oh, someone in the chat's already saying this quality is very smooth. Well, that's a great way to start. Well, speaking of smooth, let's talk about. I don't know if that makes any sense. Let's talk about Michigan this last weekend. So NASCAR, it was rained out on Sunday, so the race was postponed to Monday night. So we had some like Monday night NASCAR, some NNN. MNN? How does it go? Yes.
MNN, yeah.
Yeah, perfect. But yeah, so Michigan, it was another race with this aero package. Interesting one, Monday night race. What did you guys think of it? I'll start with you, Darian. What were your thoughts of this last week's race at Michigan?
Well, it was kind of hit. It was a very hit and miss for me. For the most part, it seems like these drivers are just still not having fun with this package. And then even from the fans' perspective, it was not necessarily the best race with this package as well. Nobody could pass the leader, and the only person who could pass was Logano. But he had the most dominant car of the whole race, and I guess there is a bit of a debate going on here. There's an argument to whether it's a package problem or just another case of the leader having a dominant car. I wouldn't say the race was necessarily horrible, but I don't know. Like I've seen some better Michigan races in years past. You saw some surprise runs. Well, I wouldn't necessarily say surprise runs. Kurt Busch got a second place finish. He's having a good, very solid season. Kyle Larson had a few epic saves. Him and Logano. He had two very epic saves during the race. Logano just ran away with it and scored his second win of the season. And this is also his 23rd career win, and now he's tied with Ricky Rudd on the all-time wins list with 23 wins. So I think that ties him with 34th, 35th, somewhere around there. And then you also saw some other drivers with problems. Bubba Wallace was running in the top 15. Unfortunately, I don't know if it was an engine problem or if it was some sort of brake problem, but something happened that derailed his run. And also Kyle Busch too. He was very quiet the whole race. He was struggling for most of the race, but was able to rally back and finish inside the top 5. So good for him. And also just some controversy too, because to me, just from my perspective, Joey Logano freaking jump started that freaking restart, man. Like that was so I don't know. To me, that was so obvious. I don't know. Like some fans are just saying, "Oh, he just had the best car and he was just able to get a faster launch." I'm not really sure, but yeah, I don't know. I'd probably rate this race a 6.5 out of 10. Certainly not the best, but certainly not the worst. Jarrett.
Yeah, you're much more positive than I am about it. I won't say it's not the worst race of the year by far, not the worst race of the year. I don't think it's the worst race in a long time, but it was not great in my opinion. I think there was just too much freight training. I mean, literally after the race, my dad found a song, like an old 80s hair metal song about freight training, and said that I needed to play it on the podcast tonight, and that sort of told me it's like, yikes. But I mean, there was passing on the restarts, and it was definitely better than just the first corner like Pocono was. Definitely better than Pocono. But that's a pretty low bar, I guess, to go off of. But I think it's more of a track problem I think it's a package problem too, in a way. They need more horsepower, need more off throttle time to make passes at Michigan. With the track being this smooth and this, more or less, there was no off throttle time at all for the most part when they showed onboard cameras. And if there was, it was maybe a small little blip and really hard to notice. But I'll give it. I'd say it was below average. I'd say 4 out of 10 in my opinion. Not crazy at all. And like Slapshoe was saying in the chat, like it was a true neutral with 50-50 with Gluck's pole, but I disagree. I'll just say that. I was not crazy about this race. I'm happy that so many people were, but I could not get on board with that.
Jet, what did you think?
I mean, yeah, I give the same rating you gave Darian, like a 6.5 out of 10. I felt like I was kind of expecting more because it was such a smooth track and because Michigan is banked, to a point where you can almost go full throttle. I felt like we could have saw maybe a closer battle of a race. I don't know. I just felt weird about this race. It was close racing. Like it was 4 or 5 different packs. You had first or fourth place. They were all in one pack, and then 3 seconds behind, and then another pack of cars. Like it was close racing, but it just didn't feel right to me. Like I don't know how to really explain it, but I just didn't view it as racing, as what do you normally call a good race. Like no throttle control, no tire management. It was just similar to like a Daytona / Talladega style, where if you could not make a pass, you're just going to go back to the pack. You're going to go 4 or 5 spots behind because everyone would just have a freight train. Or just go do a freight train on the straightaways. So yeah, I don't really have much to say. It was just a weird race. It was better than last year's Michigan race, I feel like, but very little. I felt like, again, this race, it was similar to like a Daytona / Talladega type of feel. Not this year, but in previous years. But yeah, I just felt weird about this race. 6.5 out of 10, I feel like is a good rating. I don't know what else to say. Sorry.
I would give it probably a 5.5 out of 10. I think it had potential, and what I mean by that is the racing was closer together. I think it was a lot like last year. Like there wasn't a lot of passing last year, but there wasn't a whole lot this year. I think it's just this package just shows you need more horsepower to make passes at these certain tracks. All it really does, in my opinion, is it brings it closer together, but it doesn't help the passing. It kind of hurts the passing because when you get side by side, it just slows you two down, and the guy behind will catch both of you and can slingshot. So it's like passing hurts more than it helps with this package at certain tracks, and this is one of them.
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up. Even Clint Boyer said after the race that in his entire racing career, dating back to when he was 4 years old, he has never been penalized for passing, and I think that's really telling about this package.
Well, I think he also exaggerated because I saw plenty of people make passes without getting passed back. I also saw, past Michigan races. Michigan's always just been a momentum race where if you don't complete a pass, we've seen people get steamrolled by one lane or another all the time. It was definitely exaggerated with this package, and I can understand why drivers did not like it at all. As far as for me, I think I agree more with Darian and with you guys' review of it being kind of like a 6.5. Also, wanted to say a shout out to Eric Esparza for the 2 small super chats. Thank you for that. Thank you for watching. I think it was the poster child for what a momentum race looks like. We talked about how like Kansas and Charlotte were kind of like momentum races. It's what this package creates. Michigan has always been the more momentum-based racetracks out there. This package completely accentuated that even further. I think overall, this racing did have a ton of passing throughout the field. I saw plenty of stats. I know stats don't tell the whole picture, but loop data suggests this was stated that there were more passes, more quality passes in this race than any of the past, I think, 5 or 6 spring Michigan races, which I don't know. I find that interesting. Again, that doesn't necessarily make it a good race, but for people who say you can't pass in this package, that's false. That is objectively false. You can pass. It's just different. It helps if you have a drafting partner. That It's also just kind of how Michigan's always been. I definitely expected more from this race because, like y'all said about the smooth surface, I thought with the wider groove, not wider groove, but a wider track. Texas has a super narrow groove, but we saw 2 lanes. Michigan has a slightly wider groove. I thought we'd see 3 lanes. We saw 1 or 2. So I was a little disappointed by that. Ultimately, I think the reason a lot of fans this left a bad taste in their mouth is because Joey Logano led 75% of the race, and his lead was never more than about 3 car lengths. And the problem is, I think when people see 3 car lengths, they assume that the guys in second, third place can pass them and are faster than them. And unfortunately, I think if this was a race with last year's package, Joey Logano wins this thing by 10 seconds. And, it just is what it is, because I think his car was easily the best in the field. I mean, we saw Logano at one point fell back to 6th on a restart. 3 laps later, he was back in the lead. No other car could do that, but Joey Logano's could. So it was obvious that he was the fastest car in this race. So I thought that just the visual of seeing Logano out front, but only barely for the entire race, is what rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. It made people, I think it created a negative emotion about this race that it didn't necessarily entirely deserve. That being said, it all comes down to how you feel about this type of racing, and I understand where Clint Boyer's coming from, understand where Kyle Busch is coming from, and I think the drivers aren't. I mean, the drivers, they can like it or dislike it. I'm not going to sit here and say their opinions are wrong. I just think it's going to be something that the fans will either come around on, or some fans will never come around on, and it'll just ultimately be how it is. And I do want to say, I sorry about that. I do want to say, problem. I don't know why the stream is lagging. I am in a different place. I'm not, as you can see, I'm not in my old setup. So internet here is different. It's usually very good. I stream from here plenty of times, and it's usually very good. So I don't know why. On my end, the video is lagging a little bit, but the audio sounds good. So I apologize if any of you are having issues. Maybe try refreshing. It might fix it. Hopefully it should fix itself automatically. And really quick, the Black Hole guy just sent $5. Thank you. Shout out to everyone who called MTJ a crybaby for his post-race interview, where he was smiling and credited his pit crew for a good finish. Okay,
we'll get to that probably.
Yeah, we'll get to that, but thank you for the super chat. What were you guys going to say? I'm sorry about that.
I do think, in my opinion, this race was like the epitome of closer doesn't always mean better. I'm not surprised by the loop data and more passing, just because when you get stuck out of line, it was like a plate track. You just get freight trained around. So I wouldn't be surprised if one person getting out of line, that could be 10 quality passes just right there. And I noticed a lot was a lot of people, if you timed it right, you could get around somebody on your own, but it had to be like perfect. It had to be this certain place out of 3 or out of 4, or not out of 3, out of 2 or out of 4. But if not, you'd be hung out and lose 3 or 4 spots. So I noticed a lot of the smarter, more experienced drivers and the more aggressive ones were able to get a pass here and a pass there. But it doesn't surprise me that there was more passing, just because of how the draft played such an important role in this race, especially once you got closer to the front. I mean, nothing against JTG and Chris Buescher, and they've done well with this package, but it seems like the more that draft comes in play, and the more that it's like less driver and more just however you play the air, I've noticed the better he's done with that. So I'm not saying that he's not I'm not saying he's not a good driver. I'm not saying that's not a good team, all that good stuff, but maybe just they play it smarter. But to me, this was just everything. I guess you could see how Radman talked about it in a little bit too, is sort of how I saw it as well. Just the closer it got, it made it just like that much more infuriating when people couldn't get past people, even if it was for second or third. Logano and Harvick could pretty much pass at will.
And another example of this is Austin Dillon won a stage out on old tires, as well as Kevin Harvick, and then Kevin Harvick couldn't even pass him for the stage win. That's very telling as well. I was like, well, damn, Harvick can't pass Austin Dillon for the stage win there. It's like, man, not sure what that was all about.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It reminded me of Auto Club in a way, because I remember watching Auto Club, and after the race, somebody had posted this thing, and it showed intervals from last year and this year. They were closer, but there wasn't you didn't notice the passing, or you didn't notice the distance, but it's just they were closer together. It's like what the package does.
Yeah, like what I think Jerry, you said, it was a Daytona Talladega type feel. Like if you wanted to pass for the lead, you needed to have a partner. And I thought it was pretty interesting though, the last 15 or so laps where we saw Busch and Truex sort of team up together to try and chase down Logano. And I thought if that caution didn't come out with maybe 3 to go, I thought maybe they might have had a shot at the win. Because they chopped from maybe 1 to 2 seconds to then maybe 3/10 in just a few laps. So I thought we could have see a battle, but then you said with that restart, Darian, how Logano jumped the restart. It looked like he did. I don't know. That's very close to say if he jumped the restart. Some people say maybe Truex just spun his tires. I don't know, but yeah, I think you really needed to have a partner if you wanted to get by for the lead, because the lead has clean air, and with this package, dirty air is even more of a factor now. So, I mean, some tracks is just going to work with this package, and Michigan is just not going to work. It's just how it is. That's how we're going to. Sorry, that's how we're going to go to every single race now. That's the number one thing. Is this package going to work at this track? Is it going to work at that track? And it's starting to really kind of piss me off on how that's the number one thing that we're always going to be talking about is the package. It's going to be thrown at your face. It's going to be the motto for this year, for 2019. It's just the package. And what's kind of funny about it is that there was an article printed by Matt Weaver who said that his opinion, this was the unhappiest NASCAR season ever. I understand why he says that, because no one can either don't agree or they just throw a fit. At least with last year's package, we all agreed on something that, okay, this needs help. With this year, drivers hate it. Half of the fans hate it. Half of the fans love it. NASCAR officials love it. Reporters love it. Everyone either hates or loves it, and they're just bashing heads at each other, and no one can seem to come to an agreement on what is even the short-term future of NASCAR now. Like, you know, some people say, oh, this package should be the future, and some people say, no, it should not be the future. So it's like this package created just a war of words for the remainder of the season now, and that's something I was not expecting, but we're just going to deal with that for the rest of the season now.
Yeah, that's a good point. There seems to be no sort of common ground when it comes to the package anymore. I remember last year when we were talking about, some of the racing last year, there was at least some common ground here on the podcast. But like, I feel like with pertaining to this certain package, like each of us have very different opinions on how we think the racing is and what the short-term future of the sport also is as well. I know for a fact, like I'm sort of like, okay, this is good just for the short term, so I can live with it. I think Eric probably I think you said something along the lines of, well, this is good now, and if they want to keep doing this, then they should. Like, if you want to correct me on that, I think you said something.
It's the kind of thing where I liked it as a test run, and I think this unfortunate thing is I was hoping this test run would make it conclusively either good or bad for the sport, and unfortunately it hasn't. We've had races like Kansas and Charlotte that I think most people would say, hey, pretty fun racing. Maybe I don't like how it got there, but nobody can deny, or very few people can deny it. Those races were very entertaining to watch, but then we get stinkers like Michigan, or I don't know if Michigan's not a stinker, but controversial races like Michigan, Pocono, Auto Club, and once again, going back to square one, we don't agree. And that's the thing that's kind of frustrated me, and that's why I think NASCAR's job's only getting harder trying to make this decision. I just think it ultimately comes down to what fan base does NASCAR want to go after. This has been their problem since 2003. Do they go after the sports fan, the American sports fan, or the worldwide sports fan, or they go after the hardcore, motorsports person, race car specific fans? And who do they focus their attention on? And I think for many years they focused on the more casual fan and lost a lot of those hardcore motorsports people. And then they've never really gotten them back. And then they say things this year that make it sound like we're going back after the hardcore NASCAR fan. And yet they bring out this package, which is definitely a play to the casual fan. And now we've seen TV ratings up this year across the board. Not a lot, but a little bit up this year. So it's like, is the casual fan approach working? I'm of the mindset where it's like, I like NASCAR racing pretty much no matter what they do. I like the Gen 5. I like the car tomorrow. I like some things more than others, but I like all of it. I have a positive opinion of any time there are NASCAR cars on the racetrack. So I kind of come from this corner where it's like, I just want what's best for the sport, the health of the sport. Unless they completely change the handling of these cars and turn every race into Daytona, unless they do something super, 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 super radical like that, I'm still going to enjoy watching NASCAR every Sunday. And I just want whatever I like. The problem is the route NASCAR was going from 2005 to 2015, NASCAR was not going to survive. And I didn't like that. I'm like, I want NASCAR to survive. So what could save NASCAR? Fixing the 1.5 mile tracks that we have so many of. This package has done that, I think, for the most part. It has made those races. You look at Jeff Gluck's poll. The highest reviewed races this year have been the 1.5 mile, so shockingly. So it's like it fixed that problem. So I like that, and I like that ratings are up. I'm the kind of person where I'm willing to sacrifice a little bit of my own interests because this is not my favorite type of racing. I wish we could go back to 2004, but I still like this racing to a point because I like NASCAR racing, and I'm willing to sacrifice some of what I want if I think it will help the overall health of the sport going forward. And I know we're going to have NASCAR for 20 or 30 more years. And so that's where I come from a little bit, but obviously everybody else, they want to have NASCAR around for 20 or 30 years and have it look the way they want it to look. And that's just tough because I think there's so many fans with slightly different opinions there.
I think I'm going to share screen really quick. A good gauge can be like I'm doing this every week, and a lot of you guys really like it. I'm going to share screen and we'll show you what you guys thought. People who voted hit another record of 3,000 now. Nice. So thank you guys. And the net positive outweighed the net negative. 52% of you liked the race. The net negative 19%, still a little bit higher. And then 29% average is one of the higher ones. So just kind of going through the comments, though, it was a really divisive race. Just for everyone to know, I was in this 10%. Again, I don't think it was outright bad, but at the same time, it's not momentum racing ain't my cup of tea. Yeah. Uncle Barry says, close racing is not good racing. If you can pass everyone but the leader, the racing is bad. I wouldn't go that far. It doesn't matter if the race has 40 cars within 10 seconds. If they can't pass when it matters, not good racing. Well, I mean, there's always going to be the best car. And sometimes they're leaps and bounds ahead no matter what the package be. Let's see. MDev Studio says, to everyone saying you couldn't pass the leader, you're wrong. When Harvick took the lead from Logano was able to pass him back. Logano just had the dominant car. And don't forget that this car was meant to work good in clean air. So it made it hard for cars to pass him. Which, again, I do agree to an extent. I think there's a bit of a middle ground we can hit here. I do think that, a dominant car is going to be hard to pass. That's the whole point of being a dominant car, is it's hard to pass. And then let's see, keep going. And then Ditech Cup Series says, first 30 laps were pretty decent. Last 170 weren't due to multiple factors. Weather, track conditions, car speed / handling, and the aero package. All I got to say, really.
I thought that first said the last 30 were decent.
Yeah, he said first 30.
First 30.
I'll admit I think the first half of the race was better. Chase Elliott should have won, but the race is good. I think that's what a lot of fans think every week. But thank you, everybody, for the comments and for the votes and making this just a fun success. It's been I really like doing this each week. So thank you, guys.
Before we end this topic, I have a quick question. So if NASCAR shortens the schedule and they take less mile and a half, if they take, let's say, 50% of mile and a half away, would you be okay with this package if they added short tracks, kept the package, but took a lot of mile and a half away?
This package, right?
It depends.
Yes, this package.
Okay.
If we have short tracks, like I say, if the short tracks are like Iowa and Richmond, I would not want this package to stay because I think those races, the clean air became way too much of a premium at them. But if they were more like Martinsville, I'd fine. I don't care.
I wouldn't.
You can't ruin Martinsville.
Yeah, I wouldn't like if they kept this if they kept this current package. Yeah, that's gonna be a very hard no for me there. Like Martinsville. I mean, it was all right, but just again, clean air at some of these short tracks like Martinsville, and then even Richmond to a certain extent. It was very unwatchable sometimes, and I'm gonna say no to that.
Bristol was fun though.
Bristol was really,
well, Bristol was always good.
Yeah. Bristol, like in any sort of package, it's always great.
Just imagine telling someone back in 2008 or so that Bristol be one of the best races right now. they would probably laugh at your face if you said that 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I think overall, maybe I think Eric, you said that NASCAR, they don't know who their fan base is or they don't know who they're catering to. I still think NASCAR, they're still in this mindset of a casual fan, even though I think it was Mike Phelps. Is that his name? The president?
Steve Phelps.
Oh, Steve Phelps. I'm thinking of the swimmer. Steve Phelps, when he said on the Dale Jr. Down that NASCAR, they're no longer trying to chase like a casual fan. I sort of don't believe that because if so, we wouldn't have playoffs, we wouldn't have this package, and we wouldn't have stage racing because all of those three are supposed to hype up racing, sort of force these drivers to race harder. I think what NASCAR should do is chase a motorsport fan. Like, how can we make an F1 fan a NASCAR fan, or a IndyCar fan a NASCAR fan? Because it's a lot easier to have one of those fans and make him a fan of NASCAR, because at least they know sort of the basics. They know what they want to see in good racing. You take a casual fan, let's say a football fan, they're probably going to want Daytona every week. I mean, if just ask some random Joe up the street, oh, what type of racing like to see? Oh, I like to see Daytona, when there are like 30 packs of cars and 200, something like that. They're not going to understand really what a good race is compared to what they would like to see every week. So
the problem with that is I think F1 and IndyCar take those approaches already, but like the racing is just so different. Like there's just so many different forms of motorsports, whether it's F1, IndyCar, but which are obviously open wheel, and then like NASCAR, which is a whole stock car, which is a heavy ass stock car. So
you have to look. I think it's not just as a surface level though. I think you have to look hard and deep at what connects all racing fans. I mean, even if you have to, like if you write down a list, for instance, even if you have to say the most basic thing, okay, so for instance, IndyCar, F1 fans, NASCAR fans, what's something that we all have in common? Well, we like cars with 4 wheels. That's a start. I know it sounds stupid, but it's just well, I know it's funny. It sounds stupid, but it is a start. And then you build from there. Well, what do you like more? Do you like power, and even if it is at the detriment of the racing, or do you want side-by-side racing, beating and banging, whichever it may be? I think that's the best way that you can, that NASCAR should look at it. But I think it's something that you can't do at a whim. You can't do it like they're doing Gen 7 and just stay all like the equivalent of staying up all night and cramming for a test. You gotta think this thing through. And I think a lot of it is just they spend an off season, think it'll work, and they don't stick with something. I think they got to spend a few years, make up a plan. If they're gonna do it with the whole Gen 7 rebirth of the sport, go for it. But I think it's a lot more complex than, for a long time I thought it was just, get rid of the chase, do this. But at this point, you got to be more in depth, and you have to. I think this is something that you have to have years of planning for. And for those wondering, no, I turned off my camera because I thought it would help with the stream a little bit. So
yeah, same.
It's actually not a bad idea.
Yeah, that way, even if our video is lagging, it won't be as noticeable. We don't, we're just trying to help you all out.
Yeah, this is different. We've never done this before. Everyone's camera's off.
Yeah, I didn't like that everyone in the chat seemed to be very distracted by the grainy video. So at least now you get our sexy logos instead.
All right.
Yeah. Last thing I want to say on that. Were you done, Jarrett? Sorry.
Yeah, I'm done.
Okay. Yeah. Only other thing I want to say on that topic is I think the only problem with NASCAR going after the motorsports fan is that NASCAR is solely based in America, and the problem is NASCAR's already got a monopoly of the American fan base. Like they already have way bigger numbers than IndyCar even, or not even talk about World of Outlaws or anything else. It's like, so I don't know. I just feel like there's not that much for them to gain. I think a lot of IndyCar fans are already NASCAR fans and vice versa. So it's like, I think that would be tough for them to go after. You could go for the worldwide F1 fan because there are most of the F1 fans are overseas, and I just don't know if that's going to last for NASCAR. That'd be my only concern. But I still think it's tricky because I think times have changed. I think one of the biggest things when we had Alan Bestrick on, he stated something that I think people have said, but I think it is important to reiterate. Times have changed to the point where the average person's relationship with cars and vehicles is not nearly as tight as it was 20 or 30 years ago when NASCAR was hitting its peak. I just think in general people are not as interested in cars today as they once were, and I think that means NASCAR had to kind of pivot away from the cars, and that's why they're trying to focus on the drivers. Like, it's in the drivers' hands. I mean, yeah, the drivers aren't doing quite as much, but at least Chris Buescher's now in the top 10. Maybe that means Chris Buescher is actually good. He's not held back by his terrible equipment. So it's like that's where they're going at with it, and it might be. That's why I say it might be the right decision in the long term, but it's going to make people angry in the short term, and I'm not even a big fan of it. And I will say this, something interesting. Since we switched our cameras off, I'm noticing on my end the stream says it's doing a lot better, so there might be something to this.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm looking at that too. Yeah, it's weird.
Anyway, yeah. Well, speaking of viewership, I saw Kelly Crandall put out that with the better start time, and I think also with it being summer as well, the viewership was up this past week. Well, compared to Dover,
98%.
Yeah, so they had nearly 1.6 million viewers for the Monday race, which again, it's going to be lower than most of the races around here, but it's a rainout race, so we look at the silver lining here. But yeah, I mean, near, was it, what did you say, 98% or nearly 98% above Dover. So that's I'd say that's a great gain.
The reason for that is they decided to move to a later start time due to the women's FIFA's soccer tournament, and I saw on Twitter that some fans were complaining about that, and I just want to say this, NASCAR fans, NASCAR is great and all, but there's other sporting events that take place and stuff, and FS1 has had this has had this as a priority for a while. So they're not just going to skim over it for some random Michigan race. So I just want to put that out there. And then number two, the later start time was pretty I thought it was the right move, for all involved, for TV partners and the sport. I saw some people saying oh, I'm glad that, they could, plan it later. Stuff gives me more time to prepare or plan something else, to sort of take care of some things before the race so I can actually go. Unfortunately, some people weren't able to go, but, I saw a lot of people that were. So I guess it's 50-50 on that front. And I don't know, something about them just moving the race to a later time on Monday. I don't know. It's something about that just gives it more hype no matter what it is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think if anything, it proved that, some fans have been asking for midweek races potentially, prime time, 7 p.m. on a Wednesday. This shows that maybe there is an audience for a Monday night NASCAR event, during the Monday Night Football downtime, them fans got to watch something. And if NASCAR's going after the casual fan, there's your football fans right there. I don't know. Real quick, sorry, Rubato Wolf, I don't know how to say that, just sent $5. Doubling back on rules changes, going back to old points formats, etc. Won't bring hardcore fans back. Most left when their driver retired, sadly. Well, that's definitely one way to look at.
Good point.
Yeah, I think drivers retiring is in the short term at least the biggest driving factor behind lower ratings last couple of years. But yeah, I don't know. I think even if we went back to 2004, if we made everything except the drivers the same, we just kept today's drivers and made it 2004, or let's say 2002, no chase, no playoffs, all the same rules, same cars, same schedule. I still don't think that many fans would come back. I don't think it would save the ratings necessarily. And thank you for the 5, Peppy Luscious. They say they love all of us, so that's very nice.
Thanks, man. Yeah, even though they can't see us today. Yeah, it's all good.
I'm telling you guys, our logos are pretty darn slick. I mean, this is kind of fun. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah. All right. So what else is on the agenda for tonight?
I guess also with this weekend we saw the return of the Biff.
Yeah.
That was cool.
Mm-hmm. Some positivity in the stream now. Let's talk about the Biff coming back in flying colors.
Greg, Biffle just single-handedly ruined NASCAR's youth movement with that one.
Especially with Todd Gilliland crashing out of the lead in the same equipment as Greg Biffle was.
Well, I would say the youth movement ruined themselves just with all the the wrecking and all the choking that was taking place. I mean, Todd Gilliland, I don't know what's happened with him. He's probably the most unluckiest Truck Series driver in the Truck Series right now. Stuart Friesen is a close second. He had the best truck, it seemed like, and then he just gets loose and spins out. And then you also saw some other guys crashing out, Sheldon Creed, even Stuart Friesen. He's not considered a young gun, but he's a Truck Series regular, and even he was having problems as well. And then leave it to Greg Biffle, man, to hold off Matt Crafton, a 2-time Truck Series champion, in the final 10 laps of the race. Scored his first win in a while.
Well, it wasn't like he lucked into it either. I'd understand if he completely lucked into the win, I can understand people being like, oh, it's just one. But it's he did well, and he performed much better than I thought he was. I mean, remember last week I was like, if he runs 7th to 8th, I think that'll be all right. For how long he was gone. No, he came out and he was a contender, and it was good to see again, man. It was good to see Greg Biffle back being competitive and competitive equipment, showing that he's almost 50 and he's still got it. So I was really happy to see that. I was really excited with that. I've always liked Greg Biffle. He was one of the few drivers who stopped every year for me when I was at the races. So I do have a soft spot for him. So yeah, good for Biffle, man. That was pretty cool.
I mean, this was huge for him. He hasn't really done nothing in a while. And then, some younger fans, they never really had the opportunity to see him compete for championships in the early 2000s, specifically 2005, which is by far his best season in his Cup Series career. So it's good to see them, for the younger fans, to see him win, whether it's, in trucks or whatever. Now, this does beg the question, though. I mean, I mean, Kyle Busch, he's been very adamant. I mean, he's been very upfront about, drivers, his own drivers struggling, like, oh, they suck, they're not getting anything done. I mean, could we possibly see Greg Biffle in a full-time Truck Series ride for KBM next year? I could see that.
I could see it, but I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
Sponsorship.
Yeah,
It
no
comes
sponsorship.
with sponsorship.
Well, I think
unless Carlos Jr. can sweep on, and maybe.
But it's about sponsorship, and I think it's also about, as much as we're going to rag on the youth movement, and I think that at this point the youth movement has earned it, at least in the Truck Series so far this year. I would say at the same time, the sponsors are going to want those younger drivers. I think younger fans are going to want younger drivers. It's like, as much as we like Greg Biffle being back, I don't expect someone who's 13, 14 years old getting into the sport to be excited about Greg Biffle being back. And I think at the end of the day, that's sort of, you got to get something that gets more than just the older fans talking as much. And even, and when I say older, I mean people who have been watching for a while. But I'll tell you what, if he did it, it would be sorely or completely off of merit. I think Greg Biffle deserves a ride. I think that he could probably get one, whether it's a Kyle Busch or not, who knows. But I would love to see it. Personally, I'd love to see if he could run for the championship. And people were saying he couldn't apply and stuff, but come on, when has NASCAR ever been consistent with the rules? They change rules in the middle of the season. We can change it for Greg Biffle.
Yeah, I mean, I had no idea you could switch. I mean, I had no idea you could switch championship series.
Yeah, we found that out last week.
Yeah.
I was very surprised about that.
A lot of us did.
Yeah, but I mean, it's probably one of the feel good stories of 2019 thus far. Easily, you could even make the argument it's probably the best feel good story so far this season. I would definitely like to see a guy like him back in the sport in some sort of capacity. And I don't know, Kyle Busch. I mean, hell, you've had a hard time with your current state of drivers right now. So I mean, hey, Biffle won in his first start for you. So make it happen. Let's make it happen, man. Full time in 2020.
Does anyone know where Harrison Burton finished? Because I don't think I saw him the entire race.
I believe he got a top 5.
Yeah, I think he was fourth.
Most part, he was non-existent.
Yeah, but I didn't hear a single word of Burton. I thought, is he even in this race?
Now, let's keep in mind, though, there was only 9 trucks that finished on the lead lap. That's how many cautions we had. That's how many wrecks we had. What I mean? That just shows how, the amount of wrecks and cautions we had. So only 9 trucks finishing on the lead lap. So I guess that top 5 finish is a little inflated, but, hey, he survived, I guess. So props to him.
Yes.
I think Greg Biffle said it best in Victory Lane. He won this race based on experience. And it's what it is. I think NASCAR, in football, basketball, you might be as experienced as ever, but once you hit a certain age, there's really just no way you can keep racing or keep participating. I mean, but in NASCAR, I honestly think you could put Mark Martin at age 60 in that 51 truck, and he could probably win a race.
Morgan Shepherd, put him in that truck, y'all.
Yeah, there is a point where age will come into play, but I don't think I don't know there, but yeah, I think it's just experience is important. I will say this: I think it's as nice as it was, as awesome as it was, as big as the nostalgia was around Biffle winning this race. If he came back full time next year for the 51 and won 5 races, people would be tired of him already. After 2 or 3 wins, people would be tired of Biffle. It's the same reason they'd be tired of Kyle Busch. He'd be like, they'd consider him another leech because pretty quickly everyone would remember that he's a Cup driver.
I was just about to bring that up. Eventually, fans would eventually just get so tired of it. Oh, you know what? Why is he racing full time? What a bum. That's why he couldn't win a Cup Series championship, so he has to race in the Truck Series. They would immediately turn on him in a heartbeat like that.
Exactly. But it was great to see in the moment. I don't think he races full time again. I think there's a chance he races again this season. I think it sounds like Kyle Busch really wants to get him in a truck for a Gateway. So we'll see. I don't know if it happens, but it sounds like
that's next month, correct?
It's in 2 weeks. I think it's after this race. I don't know when it is because it's part of the Triple Truck Challenge. That's part of why he wants Biffle in the truck, because if he wins that race, he gets $150,000 bonus or something crazy.
Hey, let's make it happen.
See him running part-time next season maybe then? For maybe even a different truck team, maybe someone that's unfunded?
No, I wouldn't see that. I don't think Greg Biffle wants to drive for some underfunded team. That seems like more work just for him. And I don't know. I don't see that.
Yeah, I don't know about that either. I think veteran drivers in general, it's the same reason Biffle didn't stay in the Cup Series. He could have. He had options, small teams. I don't know. He didn't name any specifics, but I'm pretty sure Biffle had some, front row motorsports or premium motorsports level rides available. But it's at that point, it's not worth your time. I think got the rest of his life to live. I don't think he needs to worry about going to the track 36 times a year to run 30th. So I don't blame him. Well, yeah, but if we want to move on from that, there was more racing this weekend than just the trucks. As exciting as that was, there was perhaps
here we go.
there's perhaps a more talked about finish out west a little ways, out in Colorado. So we don't usually talk about the K&N Pro Series on this show, or really on any of our channels, as far as I know, because it's the K&N Pro Series, But this race got everyone talking. So for those of you who missed it, K&N Pro Series West was at Colorado. I actually stayed up and watched the whole race because I was very interested to see how a few drivers would do. It came down to a final restart with Halie Deegan leading her teammate Derek Kraus. I think it was Jager Jones on the outside. On the final restart, her teammate Kraus got a good jump, took him 3 wide, ran Deegan up out of the groove, and then on the final lap, coming to the checkers, Deegan basically ran through her teammate, ended up spinning him out. She got the win, which is her second win of the year, her third of her career. And Kraus, I don't know where he ended up finishing, but it was not in the top 5. So again, the controversy comes up with how far is too far when it comes to the bump and run, the bump and dump. Teammates, the fact that they're teammates, how does that factor in? Was the contact, the retaliation from Deegan fair, or was it foul? Was it the spin too far? I don't know. How do you guys feel about that finish? Because I'm sure most of the people watching this show have at least heard or have probably at least seen a replay of that restart.
I'm pretty sure most people have some pretty strong opinions, and I'm happy about it because there needs to be drivers that are making us talk about something that isn't an aero package.
Yes.
And I think it's a little more nuanced than just it's right or wrong. I mean, they had been rubbing and stuff. A lot of people were saying that Deegan's completely innocent. She's not. She dumped him. At the same time, I find it funny that so many people defended Deegan, but then Denny Hamlin did something similar, and everyone hated him for it. Kyle Busch did something similar, and everyone hated him for it. It depends. It's the same thing with fans. It always depends on the driver. Me personally, I'm fine with aggressive driving. I'm fine with, she was up there. Beforehand, it wasn't like she just came and just bowled through the whole field. Like, she led a good portion of that race, a very good portion of that race.
Really had the best car of the entire race if you watch the whole.
I don't understand why Derek Cross was getting so much crap thrown at him. He did. He did what he had to do to win the race, and I think Deegan did what she had to do to win the race. You look back at all of these different highlight reels, you see stuff like, and I'm not comparing her to Dale Earnhardt. I think everyone knows how much respect I have for Dale Earnhardt. I'm using a comparison, I'm using a comparison in the sense of like the way that fans view it. You see fans look at all these highlights of Dale Earnhardt just bullying through people and be like, that's character right there. At the same time, you see Halie Deegan do it, and it's this huge controversy. Personally, I think it was a bit dirty, but at the same time, I'm cool with the driver being a bit dirty and going and doing anything they have to do to win a race. I would much rather my driver, whoever it be, whether it be Halie Deegan, Bubba Wallace, whoever it may be, I'd be much happier with them dumping somebody and getting a win than finishing second and never trying anything.
So I'll start off my point with a story. So after the race, I called my mom to tell her about the finish, and I told her that basically Deegan pretty much dumped Kraus for the win, and she was like, "So what's wrong with that?" And then I was like, "Are you serious? Like, you're cool with that?" And she's like, "Yeah, why not? You have to do whatever it takes." And now keep in mind, she is my mom is a diehard Junior fan when he was racing. And so I begged the question. So back in 2008, when Kyle Busch spun out Junior, that was fine. And she said, I didn't like it, but yeah, he did what he had to do. So I'm like, okay. I'm like, all right. So I'll give her that. She's very consistent on that front. So I have to give my mom props to that. So, the thing that's so crazy to me, we're talking about a finish to a K&N West Series race, which is a series that even diehard fans like myself will not watch. Well, at least not watch every single race. But diehard fans like myself will watch every race just because Deegan's in there. And I really think that says a lot about her impact in the sport. And some people might crucify me for saying this in the chat, but to me, whenever Deegan is racing, she reminds me of how fans were when Dale Earnhardt Jr. was racing, when he was coming up in the Cup Series and racing in the then called Busch Series. Like, people were enamored with whatever he was racing in, whether, or doing in that general, in that sense. So I sort of look at Deegan in the same light. And what's crazy is she has yet to make any starts in NASCAR's top 3 series. And she's already that massively popular. I mean, if you look on Instagram, she has more followers than pretty much damn near every single Cup Series driver. And then, she has more followers on Twitter than some Cup Series regulars. So, I mean, that's pretty big. That's very impressive to me. And I think it bodes well for the future. Now, on the racing front, back to the racing front of this topic. I think it was 50-50 to me. Kraus, he was obviously very aggressive on that restart, but then again, it's just short track racing. So obviously he's going to be aggressive, but then, heading into those final 2 turns, Deegan, put the bumper to him, and then he ended up spinning. So that was also, Deegan's fault. Obviously she dumped him. To me, that was just typical short track racing on both fronts. Life's unfair, and so is racing. You're gonna have things go your way and not go your way there. I just think it's very ridiculous that Kraus is getting a ton of hate from this, which I don't know why, because he's the one who got dumped. I've never seen that before. That just goes to show how popular Halie Deegan is. Imagine getting dumped and you're getting the blame for it. That's insane. I've never seen that in racing before. I've never seen that ever.
It's not the first time he's had something from her. Like, here's the thing. She was like, "Oh, it's racing," and I agree. I'm gonna be because it's gonna happen. I'm gonna be very, very interested in what happens when Kraus finally gets her back, because it's the first time that they've had anything. And if she goes on about how this and that, and then it's like, hey, you reap what you sow.
Eventually Kraus is gonna get sick of that nonsense.
I root for her. Like, I'll admit that I'm a bit biased for her, but at the same time, I'm not gonna be sitting there. I might be mad that my driver didn't do well, but I'm not going to be sitting there mad because Kraus did what she would do to him, And I do think that she needs to lay off doing, this can't become the thing she does for a win every single time, especially moving up into the Truck Series and especially the Xfinity and Cup Series. That stuff's not going to fly. 1, because the drivers aren't going to take it as much, and 2, because the tracks you race at, you're not going to be able to rough people up all the time and get wins. Something like what happened at Chicagoland last year is not normal in the Cup Series for a 1.5-mile track. It's an anomaly, and I don't think if she were to race like this all the way up, that she would make it there. It's just not possible.
Yeah, and one last thing I want to bring up, and then I'm done. Just the fans. I've said it. I've said this time and time again. I do not understand NASCAR fans most of the times now these days, because Deegan spins out someone and now they're saying, "Oh, there's the new Intimidator right there." But then Joey Logano simply bumps Truex out of the way, and then they throw a hissy fit. So I don't know. I feel like today's NASCAR fans, you guys might want to pump the brakes a little bit, because I mean, you're talking about, we need a new Intimidator, but then when someone races hard in the Cup Series, you throw a hissy fit about it. So, let's just, stop talking about that there.
Well, I guess I wasn't going to go next, but I have to address that because you basically just called me out entirely.
No, I didn't call you out. I didn't call you out because I watched your video and you weren't directly comparing her to the Intimidator there. I'm just saying, NASCAR fans, especially on NASCAR Twitter, are very hypocritical and stuff. I actually liked your video, and I actually agree with you.
Well, my point is, I thought what Logano did at Martinsville was a bit over the edge, and I actually think what Deegan in this case did was over the edge. But I think my difference is, I'm not going to ignore it. Logano's obviously an aggressive driver. We all know that. He's probably one of the most aggressive top drivers in the Cup Series, and that's why he's rubbed people the wrong way. But he doesn't spin people to win every race. Deegan's won 3 K&N races, and all 3 have come after contact for the lead. And that's why I'm saying the fact that she races the way she races, and she is not apologetic about it at all. After the race, if you watch any of her interviews and stuff, she was very not she believed what she was saying. She had no issues with how she raced. I think there's just a difference there. I think Deegan, one, it's also the off the track thing. I'm not comparing her to, and I said this in my video, I don't compare her to Dale Earnhardt because obviously their careers don't match up at all. I'm only comparing her based on her on the track personality. And right now she has, of any driver I've watched in NASCAR this year, she has the strongest on. She also has the strongest off the track personality, which is why I think she's going to be incredible when she eventually gets higher up in the sport. But as far as on the track personality, she is consistently, when it comes down to it, late in these races, bump, bump, bump. If it means she wins the race, if it means you're going to be a little upset. In all fairness, I think most of her bumps for the win have been somewhat fair. Like even this one with Kraus, he roughed her up a little bit. I think she was just trying to knock him out of the way. I don't think she meant to spin him. Obviously the spin makes it look bad, and I wish she hadn't spun him there. I think that was too far. If she just hit him up out of the way and he finished second or third and she wins the race, I have no problem with it, and I'd be surprised if that many other fans had problems with it. I just think in general, I agree with what you said though. I think it was Jarrett said it a second ago. You know, if she continues to race this way going forward, if this is how she races in ARCA, if this is how she races in trucks, and especially I agree when she gets on the bigger tracks, if she's trying to race like this, it's not going to work for her. She's going to start wrecking, and she's going to suddenly realize, whoa, I can't. She's going to start wrecking herself, is what I'm saying. She's all of a sudden going to realize, whoa, I can't just use the bumper at Charlotte. Like what? It's going to throw her for a loop when she gets there. So she's shown she can race cleanly, like she did for the first 125 laps, and then she can also race dirty and race aggressively when she needs to, which is why I think she's the real deal. I just think when it comes down to these short track races, it always ends up. She had that race won until that final caution, and then Derek Kraus kind of said, "Hey, it's a short track," and ran her up the out of the lane. And so she kind of returned and just said, "Oh yeah, I guess you're right. It is a short track." Bam.
Derek Kraus is the one who's really being overlooked. I think not only in just this, but just in general right now. I mean, Halie Deegan has the star power right now. There's no way around that. But I think Derek Kraus right now, if I'm not mistaken, he's the points leader, isn't he?
He's the better prospect.
Right?
I've kept track of him for a while now and stuff. He's obviously the better prospect.
Yes, he's a really, really good driver. And that's the thing that I don't want people hating him because he went up against Halie Deegan. Like that, I think that's just the stupidest reason to hate a driver. Oh yeah, so this driver raced my driver hard. And I think that moving forward, because I do think Deegan's going to get higher up into the sport. There's no denying that. Between all the stuff that she has, no problem. Also, same thing with Derek Kraus. And I think this is something that possibly could continue moving forward. I'm not going to say it's the next Pearson Petty rivalry because everyone likes to blow these things out of proportion like that. But I mean, Derek Kraus is a great driver moving up right now, a great young driver. And I think he's getting the raw end of the deal here, man. I mean, he did nothing wrong. He did nothing wrong whatsoever. And I feel like people think that because they're supporting Deegan, that means they have to be against Kraus. No, it can be the same. It's just it's hard racing, I want to see his perspective. I want to talk to him about how he sees this whole thing because I know how he sees it, but I want to just hear how his mind works through all this because it's just it baffles me. I mean, I understand why, but it baffles me how many people are against him because he raced Halie Deegan for a win. That's all he did. He got crashed. He raced hard, yes. He also had from what people were saying, he had a broken sway bar too.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Deegan said that after her race. Yeah.
Yeah. So people got to lay off the guy, man. It's giving him, I guess, preparation for the future for because if he moves up and starts winning a ton, people are going to hate him then, and at least they'll know how to handle it.
Yeah.
Yeah. What I would compare the wreck to in a way, it's not the same, but it was kind of like Matt and Joey in 2015 because Matt was blocking, like he came down on her, but Joey never lifted when he hit Matt, and she never lifted. She just plowed into it. So it's like one of you said it was like a 50-50. But you're right. As she comes up moving through the ranks, how are other drivers going to race her? Are they just going to automatically think, I'm going to get dumped? And are they going to get into real defensive and wreck her doing it? It just, yeah.
Well, Daniel Suarez has been on record saying that, in today's Cup Series, pretty much almost every single Cup Series driver races with no respect. So I don't think they're going to take any of Deegan's shenanigans once she eventually gets up there.
What makes you?
Oh, I was just thinking. You look at a lot of the sports history, and even recently, and you have to think with Halie Deegan. There's one thing, it's the big. I said it in my video. Big elephant in the room is that she is a woman driver. That's a big thing. Everyone's going to know that. That's how I got to know who she was. That's not why I root for her. I think rooting for someone because of their gender is a stupid reason to root for them.
Or skin color too. I just want to throw
skin
that
color,
out there.
whichever it may be.
Mhm.
I think you got to root for them for the driver they are and the personality they have. I like her personality. I like the driver she is. But there are some drivers in the sport, and there are fans who are not going to like her because she's a girl, and especially the lower end. And you saw even in the K&N series, she was not good off the start. She was racing in the back. She was, she was being crashing a bit. I mean, she wasn't as. I'm not.
She was decent.
Let me finish my. Let me finish
She
my
was
point.
decent.
Let me finish my point. But she wasn't up front, right? She was still racing some of those back guys. Well, that's going to only get bigger and bigger the higher up she gets. She's going to be facing better drivers, maybe not in ARCA, but definitely in trucks. You're going to be facing better drivers in the Xfinity Series, and if or when she gets there, Cup. And it seemed like a lot of those back drivers have a lot less patience. You look at Danica Patrick. I know that there's differences here, but there's a little bit of comparison where drivers did race her harder. And you look throughout history when women drivers come up, some of those guys will race them harder just for that reason. So the last thing I guess you want to do is really just tee off a bunch of people that already don't like you for a stupid reason. I'm not saying it's all of them. I'm not saying it's a majority of them, but it's just these little things build up over time. And if you're just going to start racing without respect to people who already don't respect you, it's going to be a really, really hard time moving up.
And plus, another thing to add to that, Jarrett, to add to that good point, there's a lot of jealous people in this world, and especially in NASCAR. So, I mean, she's already getting all of the publicity just from her last name alone, because her father was very successful in motorsports. And then, the fact that she's a woman, and also the fact that, she's running well, and then also throw in the fact that, she's, roughing up the field a little bit and stuff too. So, I mean, the jealousy is all already there. But then, you add to the fact that some of the on-track incidents and stuff like that, I'd just be a little worrisome about that.
The bad part about all this. Oh, sorry.
That's fine. I was about to say about even recently this year in ARCA, I think it was in Toledo, or Salem, where she was being blocked by a driver because I think it was her owner refused to let a woman pass her. So even in 2019 now, that's still a problem, and I do agree that she probably needs to race a bit cleaner. Like I understand, it's the final lap, on a short track, you're gonna want to use the bumper, but as you mentioned, as you move up the ranks, you start to get away from the short tracks. You start to go to the Monahas, of your Chicagolands, your Kansas, your Charlottes. You can't keep racing like that. You got to be clean. They're not gonna give respect to a driver, especially if it's a girl. It's sadly in 2019, that's the way it is. That's just Like I wish it wasn't like that, but wait, what?
I'm not going to say all or even majority. I think it's a small amount. But
No, not. Unfortunately, that's the way it is, though. Like not all of them race like that, but because she's a woman, she's going to play a bit nicer for now. Maybe if she races a lot cleaner for a good portion of time, she might start to earn respect of her competitors. But I mean, overall, Deegan, I say this, but I think she could be the next superstar if she plays her cards right. She already has the personality. It also doesn't help that she's a woman. I mean, even when Danica Patrick, when she entered into NASCAR, everybody was all over Danica, especially when she won the pole.
Get away from Danica Media that year.
I remember that interview with Tony Stewart. He was like, "Oh yeah, I'm actually getting an interview. It's not Danica Patrick."
Yeah, I mean, she's gonna get noticed for that reason. And while I did bring that point up, I do also want to preface too, because I know a lot of people also will bring this up. It's like any criticism of her or any other female driver, it's not because of just sexism right off the bat. That's the thing that a lot of people have sent me a lot, and it's like, no, you criticize people because of the driving and the merit of it. There's a reason more people are criticizing Natalie Decker than there are criticizing Halie Deegan. Deegan puts up results. Sure, there's those idiots that say stupid things, but there's going to be idiots everywhere you go. And that's the thing with Deegan, because I know I can see the bigger she gets, more people are going to say anytime someone rips on her sexism. That's not the reason people are ripping on her here. Like what she did Like it was a dirty move. She dumped him. At the same time, it's whether I think what fans have to see is whether or not you want to accept that. Is that something you like in your driver, or is that something you don't? I like that with this move though. We're arguing about something racing and with substance here. We're not arguing about a stupid package for the 20th straight week. We're not arguing about a points format and for however many weeks, we're talking about the racing aspect of it. And that's something I think that is so refreshing, I guess, not only about her in this regard, but also just about this whole situation. So
I was just happy to see that, K&N was getting this much recognition on social media. I mean, I was in shock. Like, I knew it was going to get some level of attention because it's Deegan and she won a race, but I didn't expect it to be this big in terms of social media reaction. So
Oh,
it
no.
is nice.
Oh
Really?
no, yeah. Oh well. I wasn't really shocked. I mean, Deegan is approaching superstar status insanely fast. So whenever she wins, it's going to be very
I
publicized.
mean,
Could you
if this is what she's like in a K&N, imagine what she's like in trucks if she wins a race.
Exactly,
That's what I was
exactly,
gonna say.
exactly. That's why. The sky's the limit. So hopefully she can continue with her progression and not rush up like certain drivers, and she'll be good to go.
I will say this. I think I don't know. I think there's a difference. I'm not gonna act like she's. I don't want people to get the idea that she's just a dirty driver naturally. I don't think she is. I think she races as clean as anyone else in the K&N series. She's just shown that if you're in her way, or if you've slightly wronged her, which Derek Kraus did slightly wrong her, she's going to make sure she gets the last laugh. And that's what she did. Obviously, I think the spinning him went too far. I don't think that was on purpose. I don't think she went into that turn thinking, I'm going to wreck him. I think she just went into that turn thinking, I'm going to hit him really hard, and I'm going to win this race, because she led the 40 laps earlier and felt like she deserved the win, which fair enough. And I think that's a different. I think that's the difference between past incidents, especially in the Cup Series, when people like to compare it to like Hamlin versus Chase Elliott. Like, well, Hamlin spun Chase Elliott on accident, but for no reason. Like, Chase Elliott didn't do anything to Denny Hamlin, so that's why there's a problem there. And then Joey Logano spun, or didn't spin, but bumped Truex out of the way after Truex raced him cleanly for 10 laps. So there's a difference there. Logano and Hamlin, you can make an argument that their moves were cheap shots. With Deegan, I think the contact, at least my opinion, was 100% warranted. Not a cheap shot at all. I think the spin was the only thing that made it feel cheap. But I don't want people to get this idea. Well, unless that's what the rest of you guys really feel like. If you guys feel like Deegan is an overly aggressive, dirty driver, then that's fine. I don't think so. I think she actually is doing just fine. I just worry that it will cross over a line at some point if she does wrong the wrong person in the wrong way.
Yeah,
Well,
I think she's aggressive. I think she's aggressive. I think that it's the same way that a lot of people like Tony Stewart is towing that line. She's towing that line of, was it too aggressive or over aggressive? You notice that the majority of the people aren't saying she was overly aggressive or completely clean here. I think the majority of the people are in the gray area on this. I don't think Twitter is a good litmus test for what the fans think, but for the majority of the people I've seen are like, yeah, it was dirty, but at the same time not, or oh, it was aggressive, but maybe not, and that's, I think, what's so what's so intriguing about her, her racing style right now, is that she hasn't crossed that line. It's not something where she pulled the Matt Kenseth and pushed Logano all the way into the wall, or she pulled any other driver. That's just the most famous one right there. But I'll be honest, it's fun. It's fun talking about drivers racing like this and about this short track racing. And I think this is another reason why people need to come out and force for short tracks, come out to Bristol, all those stuff, because this is the kind of racing I think we all want to see and talk about.
And also,
it all boils down to basically, in my opinion, what kind of racing you like and who the driver is. Because if Chase Elliott would have done it to Denny Hamlin, if she would have gotten wrecked, and if any other fan favorites would have gotten wrecked, they would have been mad. But since it was her, they're happy. In a little bit of a way that it also relies on the personality of a driver. If you like that driver, then yeah, you're going to be like, that was awesome. But if they get wrecked, it's like, no.
And also, you have to look at her background. Naturally, she's going to be the more aggressive driver, just based off of what she used to race full time. Those dirt super trucks. I don't know if you guys have ever seen a full race, but they literally bump each other every single lap. They freaking rough each other up, going into the turns and stuff. Usually sometimes you'll get dumped, sometimes you'll get roughed up, or excuse me, all the time you're going to get roughed up. So she's still learning stock cars. She has a very long way to go. Just in terms of raw talent, I put this comment on Eric's video. She's clearly one of the best I've ever seen in terms of raw talent, really.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the fact that she can go from off-road. She was also successful in off-road and jump right into asphalt and already won 3 races. I mean, that's pretty good to say the least. I mean,
yeah, it's pretty wild.
That's what I was thinking. I mean, she's only been in asphalt for like 3 or 4 years now.
Yeah. I mean, there have been people that have been in asphalt or done asphalt their entire career and have not had this much success probably in the same equipment as Deegan has. So, she's a real deal.
Well, Sheldon Creed, I mean, he has an ARCA Series championship because he raced in the same series, I think. So, like, I guess Sheldon Creed's probably the most successful in that class right now just because he's been there longer. But yeah, she has some catching up to do. But yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I just viewed it as. Oh, sorry.
I see. From the chat, Jacob just said she came from the same background as Jimmy Johnson did.
Yeah, Johnson was a dirt racer before he went to NASCAR.
Trucks.
That confirms Deegan's 7-time champion.
And you guys thought I was crazy calling her the Intimidator.
Jeez.
No, let's not jump the gun. What's up, Rusty? Rusty in the chat.
What's up, Rusty?
What's up,
Rusty?
Yeah, well, we've passed over the, it's 8 o'clock here, the 9 o'clock Eastern hour of the show. I want to mention a couple super chats we missed during that last conversation. But Monday Morning Racer chimed in with $5 saying, female racers are good for business in motorsports. Janet Guthrie sold tickets for the 600 years ago. And just look at the NHRA. He's got a point there. Obviously, I don't think any one of us are arguing that Deegan will be bad for the sport if she makes it to the Cup Series. And then your creepy uncle, of course, dropping in with $5. We can always count on one of our number one fans. Your creepy uncle. Have we ever figured out whose creepy uncle he really is? Because he's sometimes on Danny's channel, he's sometimes on my channel. Me and Danny aren't
Maybe
related.
It's everybody's.
Oh,
Yeah, I think he's everybody's creepy uncle.
There you go.
We all got him.
Well, that'll do it. Yeah, that's true. So moving on, did we want to talk at all about the final restart at Michigan, or is that kind of just old news at this point?
That was like I sort of talked about it.
Yeah, we mentioned it.
We could probably go over a little of a lightning thing. And reminder that the little lightning round here of just going through stuff means that we don't stop and talk about it. We just brush over it.
Yeah.
Just fun. So going over the lightning deal here. Let's just call it the lightning deal. So starting off, Jeff Green, I think we all know who he is. According to J-Ski, is having rotator cuff surgery this week. He will miss the rest of the season. Also, Bob Pockrass reported that, and we talked a little bit about it earlier, is that NASCAR not looking to add horsepower back, at least not in the foreseeable future. We all have our opinions of that one. Adam Stern also reported that RCR is working on getting Tyler Reddick into the Cup Series next year, whether it's an in-house deal or an affiliate deal. On top of that, Brian France reached a plea deal on his DWI charge. And then Tyler Ankrum, he will not be going full-time now because of lack of funding. That is the lightning round. Any
sound effect.
Opinions?
Also, Dylan Lupton, I think he's going to be like replacing in the 17 car. He's going to drive in Chicagoland.
Yeah, he's back.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. I think, Tyler Reddick, he's ready for the Cup Series. If I'm Richard Childress, I'll do whatever I can. I would do whatever I could to bring him to the Cup Series in RCR equipment rather than just some random affiliate. Also to talk about Jeff Green really quick. Jeff Green, he is going to be out, but I also read somewhere where he was going to be returning to the track as a crew chief for, I think, the same team he was driving for. So, going to try out a new occupation while he's out.
And then really quick right here, I'll share screen for a minute. So Chase Elliott released a throwback.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I like it.
That looks much better. Much
I like it.
It's really good. So,
We got a naysayer.
well, this is the same one that thought that was good. So, but anyway, so just thought that a lot of people in the chat, you might want to know what your boy Chase Elliott is going to be driving at Darlington. Looks pretty good in my opinion.
I like it. Yeah.
So,
It's all right.
Real quick,
Certainly better than last year's, though. That's for sure.
I like last year. Now you like last year's?
Yeah, I mean, I was like so on it, though.
I liked it.
Like I liked it just because it was his cousin. it was his cousin's paint scheme. But like, the paint scheme, if you don't know any of the background to it, you would look at it and think, not the best.
It was all right.
So I guess a little more news. I think we can go more into depth about this one. Is another report from Adam Stern that Nationwide Insurance leaving HMS in the 88 after this year.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised. I mean, Dale brought Nationwide, and he's Dale Jr. And Alex Bowman really. I haven't even seen Alex Bowman in a Nationwide commercial like ever.
I don't think there has been one. If I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken.
So, I mean, he is performing better, but I'm not going to say I'm surprised because he's not Dale Jr. So
Yeah.
and that's the reason he has Nationwide. So
Yeah,
I think the report. Oh, sorry.
No, go
Sorry,
ahead. Go ahead. I'll let you talk.
I think the report also said that Nationwide they're staying with Junior as as a spokesperson.
Mhm.
So it really does. I'll just confirm they were only there because of Junior. But I think now this really Bowman's going to be on the hot seat because really Bowman only had Nationwide and Exalta as sponsors, and Nationwide is usually the only sponsor that funds for a majority of the races. So Bowman's going to really have to put on some results if he wants to keep his ride. I know he signed on with Hendrick till 2020, but I mean, it was tough to get Jimmy Johnson a sponsorship, a 7-time champion. So now imagine what's going to be like maybe for really a driver who I think has little to no personality. Sorry. When I think of Bowman, I think of he drives for Hendrick. What else do you want me to say?
that's true.
You could put a crash test dummy in that car, and I wouldn't know any difference.
So I have a theory about that, about the whole Nationwide leaving Hendrick deal. Adam Stern had said that it was that in the contract when they re-upped last year that they there was the option to opt out after the 2019 season. So personally, I think Rick Hendrick was 100% ready for that, and right now he's probably. He probably has some sponsorship deal lined up in the works for him as we speak right now. I don't know like when the announcement would be or anything like that or what the hell it is, but I think he already has something in the works. I think he's totally prepared for that.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say Alex Bowman gets kicked out and Noah Gragson comes in.
Oh no. Okay. All right. All right. Slow your roll there. Let's slow your roll. All right. Let's back up a bit.
I said I'm going out on a limb. I never said it was true.
No, Gregson. No, to be fair though, Gregson is doing better. I mean, he is doing better, but certainly not ready for the Cup Series though.
Yeah. I mean, Larson to the 88 is more realistic.
That wouldn't surprise me.
Well, I think the important thing is. Oh yeah.
What's that? Is Credit One Bank? Is there like is he like a personal sponsor or is it just like a team sponsor? Because I mean,
no
if
idea.
Larson were to leave, he could go to Hendrick maybe. I mean,
I'm not exactly sure, but I don't know. Let's just go on a limb and say like, yeah, it's it's more of a personal sponsor than the actual team sponsor. Then yeah, I mean, if Hendrick didn't have anything lined up in the works, then I would be a little worried if I were Alex Bowman if Larson wanted to jump ship. But I think Larson's like good through like 2023. I think Chip Ganassi's never gonna let him go,
Man,
something
that's
like that.
alone.
Or 2021, somewhere around there, somewhere into the 2020s.
I think the important thing for Bowman here is he still is under contract through next season. So even if they got to run HendrickCars.com on that 88, he'll be on track for the entirety of the next year and a half. So that's important. That's plenty of time. Like they were able to put together. Like I think the important thing here is Hendrick Motorsports was able to help Jimmy Johnson find not just a sponsor to replace Lowe's. And remember, Lowe's only announced they were leaving in the middle of last season. So they did this in a matter of months. They were able to find not just a sponsor for Jimmy Johnson, but a committed full-time sponsor every single race for the next, this year and next year. Like something that we don't see in NASCAR anymore. Denny Hamlin with FedEx is basically the only other thing like that exists in NASCAR still. That doesn't exist. Mm-hmm. But they found that for Jimmy Johnson even during a down year. Alex Bowman, I know he's not.
That's true.
He's not like a shining personality per se, but he's getting the finishes. He's consistently in and around the top 10. Probably make the playoffs this year. Might win a race this year. He's an up and comer. He's promising. I think in the next year and a half they can find a sponsor to fill that 20 race gap. Or I guess not in the next year and a half. I guess they need to find a sponsor for next year, so that's only a few months. But obviously, in a year and a half, when it's time to re-up with him, I think he has a chance to find sponsorship that will stick with him. But if he doesn't, I think it'll be really interesting after 2020 because you could have at least 2 vacant cars at Hendrick Motorsports that offseason with Jimmy. His contract is up, and I still think he's going to retire or at least step away and do other things. And then if Alex Bowman's contract, if they don't extend him, if they can't find a deal, they don't match up there, and Hendrick doesn't want to keep Bowman, you could have 2 of the most iconic numbers in NASCAR open in the same offseason. And I think, yes, Gragson will get one of those, assuming he's still decent. as long as he continues on the trend he's on right now, he'll probably get one of those for better or worse. But there will still be at least one pretty competitive car that's open that you never know. Larson, depending on his contract situation, I don't know, maybe Boyer, if he's still around, if he ends up not re-upping with Stuart Haas, I don't know. But that would be very interesting. Allgaier maybe makes the jump back up.
I do think that whatever Hendrick does in 2020, because I was thinking about that too. 2020, they're going to have the 48 and the 88 open, 2 iconic numbers. At the same time, you got Chase Elliott, and while Chase Elliott is still coming into his own, he's still a young driver. William Byron's going to be a young driver for the next decade. And so you have 2 openings there, and I'm assuming they're going to have Gragson come up, if not for anything else other than money and personality, even if the results don't show. If he can sell shirts, if he can sell diecast, I think they'll have him come up. But the thing that I think Hendrick knows more than anything else, and has shown throughout the years, is you need that older guiding hand. So whether it is a Clint Boyer or whether it is a Kurt Busch, who's seems to be a plug-and-play kind of driver at this point, whoever it may be, I really think that one of those rides is going to be filled up probably by an older driver. So that's something I think that people have to look outside the box with too. Who knows? Like, say something goes south and Kevin Harvick's open, and think he wouldn't turn down the 48 car after years of chasing it. He can finally be the one chased, hopefully, for his sake.
He can find that golden horseshoe.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But I do think that one of the drivers that they're going to be putting in there more than likely will be an older veteran, probably somebody in the swan song of his career as well. While the Jimmy Johnson swan song doesn't seem to be playing out too hot, maybe the next one will, who knows? But I do think that one of them will be Gragson, and I don't think Chase Elliott in the next 2 years is going to be ready to be the oldest driver, the defining mentor driver to a bunch of guys who are only like 2 or 3 years younger, at most 7 years younger than him.
I see.
That's just how
in
I
the chat. Tom said Brett Moffitt. Is GMS Chevy?
Yeah.
Do you think if he brought
They do have a bit of like a partnership,
sort of alliance.
with
Yeah.
Yeah,
with
so I
Junior
wonder
Motorsport,
if he could bring sponsorship, if they would put him in one of the cars.
I mean, here's a shocker. Why not maybe Christopher Bell?
Well, hold on. Let's pump the brakes a little bit. I mean, it's not like Alex Bowman is performing terribly. Like, I mean, I do feel like Hendrick is eventually going to find something for him. I think Bowman's going to be all right. I think Bowman's good. And if Bowman keeps on performing the way he is, definitely on pace to have a much better season than he did last year, which even last year wasn't that bad. I mean, he made the playoffs.
4 or 5 really good weeks, I don't think really washes over the fact that for the majority of his career in good equipment, he still hasn't been the greatest driver. And I still, and maybe I think this is me being biased a little bit too, but as a junior fan and watching it a lot closer than a lot of other fans, I personally don't think Greg Ives is a championship or even top 10 level crew chief.
No.
I don't think, and so as long as Greg Ives is going to be heading up that team, I don't think Alex Bowman has enough to consistently make that team a competitor and a contender. I think what he's done so far, I think, is on Alex Bowman. I don't think it's on the crew chief. And I think that moving forward, if they hit a bump in the road, and I think with Jimmy Johnson more than likely retiring in the next few years, I think you're going to see Hendrick dip a little more. I think that you saw it with Jeff Gordon, you saw it with Dale Jr., and now what you're probably going to see with Jimmy Johnson is that those older drivers, while they might not be performing as well, still have a lot to prove. They still are not to prove, a lot to say, a lot of input to put in.
A lot of knowledge.
A lot of knowledge, and that's something that these younger guys, obviously don't have yet. So I guess that's my deal on it. Is I don't think Bowman is marketable as much as these other guys. I think William Byron, even though for all that everyone knows has the same personality as a vanilla wafer, he's still more marketable because he's a younger guy. He is also somebody who seems to be pretty talented from what we could see with him moving up. Chase Elliott, I don't even have to say. And then Noah Gregson, just for the personality and being so controversial, is going to be more marketable.
Well, I just want to point out, Alex Bowman, outside of last year, pretty much most of his time in NASCAR, he has had the worst equipment. Mm-hmm. Just going back to freaking BK Racing and Tommy Baldwin and stuff. So honestly, like, I guess from my perspective, I'm a little more sympathetic just because, I like seeing those, rags to riches stories where, like, the underdogs are finally going to get their big breaks and stuff like that. So that's just me. But at the same time, though, I feel like, after one full season, and then, we're not even halfway into the season, I feel like, after maybe 2 or 3 more seasons, I think then we can sort of say, like, it's like, he's not going to become that superstar some people envision.
I'm not saying that his story isn't likable in any way or any of that. What I'm saying is, Ross Chastain proved that sponsors don't give a crap whether your story is likable or not. Ross Chastain last year, I think, performed better, and they just didn't have the sponsorship that could line up for this coming year. It's not about whether or not the story is likable to make them marketable. What makes them marketable is a whole host of factors, and I personally don't think that Alex Bowman has all those. I think he's a driver that's similar to someone like. Not in the way of passing, but to Ryan Newman for, maybe at this point, or someone who's similar to a Reed Sorensen, except better, or, just someone like that they're a blank slate and you can put them in and they'll perform adequately. And their ceiling is really good. Bowman's ceiling is really good. I think we saw that for about 3 or 4 straight weeks, but we're not going to see Bowman's ceiling every single week, or maybe not even every single season. Just every driver has these times where they peak up, and maybe I'm wrong, and maybe he's gonna end up being this next superstar. I hope so for his sake, because he seems like a nice person, but I just don't see it right now.
But don't you think that he should probably use that story to his advantage in terms of marketing?
The fact that he hasn't already, the fact that he hasn't already baffles me. Like, I don't understand why he hasn't used that story, because it is a great story. Mm-hmm. And I think that the right marketing team would have already used that story. At this point, though, us right now, but at this point, it might be too late. You can't just 3 years into being on this big team, then start saying, look at this rags to riches story that you've literally been witnessing for the last few years. It doesn't go the same way as with like what Chastain has done.
I think that's the biggest issue with Bowman is he's too old. We haven't we've seen William Byron win in the Truck Series, in the Xfinity Series recently. We've seen Eric Jones, we've seen Christopher Bell, we've seen Tyler Reddick now, we've seen Chase Elliott win. We've seen all these guys. We've even seen Ross Chastain win in NASCAR recently. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know. I haven't looked up the stats. Does Alex Bowman have any wins in NASCAR's top 3 series?
He won in the Xfinity Series.
Xfinity in 2017.
Okay. He won Charlotte.
So he has one win. That's the problem. Is I just think he's not the hot new thing anymore. I think you look at the guys winning 6-7 races in the lower series, getting into NASCAR right now. He's just not exciting. He's too old when compared to the William Byrons, the Eric Joneses, the Chase Elliott's. He's the same age as like Kyle Larson. I think he's even older than Kyle Larson, isn't he? And and we've seen Larson win recently. So it's like I just think at some point when he does start winning, it's going to be his career could go the route of Martin Truex Jr., where he maybe wins a race at this point in his career.
And then 25.
He's what?
He 25. He is, or 26, I should say. It's not like I don't think he's too young. It's just nothing is flashy with him.
That's what I'm saying. He's like
he's there.
When we see like William Byron win a race, we're like, wow, he's 20. Can you believe that? If Alex Bowman wins a race, it's like, well, he is 26. It's like, I don't know, it's just not as exciting. I'm not saying I'm not saying he's like an old, washed up and like forgettable. I'm just saying that is part of the reason Chase Elliott. That's part of the reason Derek Kraus and Halie Deegan have the best sponsors, because they're like 17 and dominating their series at the time. That's impressive to see a 17-year-old. Because I see the chat saying, how is Bowman too old compared to these other young guys he's competing with?
Yeah, he's very old.
Well, it shows the change in the time too. I mean, someone Bowman's age, being in a top ride like this, something like that maybe 20 years ago, back when Tony Stewart, Dale Jr. coming up, be normal. It would be normal. But nowadays, the drive, everything is moving younger. The drivers coming up are younger. The guys coming into Cup, you got guys like Kyle Busch, 19 and going on 20. That was really the start of this. And then you got guys like Joey Logano and William Byron now, and it's starting to be a trend here. And I go back to talking about that. There's nothing flashy. He's not super young, so it's not, wow, look how young he is. It's not like he has this boisterous personality that everybody is going to pay attention to. No, it's, oh yeah, he said something. And his driving style, it's clean, but it's not like something where it's like he's known as one of the most respectful guys in the garages. He's not aggressive, like so that you're not going to see that. He's like, I guess the way I see it is like when you look at him, he's kind of just like if you compare it to like a Thanksgiving dinner, for instance. I'm going to use an analogy. I'm going to use my Colin Cowherd here and make an analogy.
Go ahead.
He's mashed potatoes without gravy. He's good. He's good, but he could be better.
I'll even go further with my own analogy. He's an off-brand Paul Menard. What I mean by that is, Paul Menard, like he's a guy that, he's just there. But like with him, he doesn't show, any sort of, facial expressions, whether it's good or bad. And he's memed the hell out of it. I can't even talk. And he's memed for it. Get hard for Menard was like, trending on Twitter when he won the pole at Chicagoland last year. I remember that, was going off. And, whenever he takes the lead, I always see hashtag get hard for Menard, So he sort of has that. As with Bowman, to me, Bowman is nearly the exact same person and driver, except you never hear anything about him.
And he's young. He's a little younger.
Right.
And the thing is like the last few weeks, I've been turned to supporting Bowman more. I won't say I'm a fan of his, but like before he started his second place finish streak and then racing up front more, I really couldn't care less about Bowman. I thought that he was he complained a lot and stuff like that. But I have to admit, it's like I like him. I think he from what I've dug to see, he seems like a good dude. He seems like a really nice person, but it's just nowadays you need so much more than just he's a nice guy who's a good driver. You need so much more than that to be in a car. You might need daddy's money. You might need some crazy personality or to be really aggressive. There has to be some X factor. And for me, unless he can consistently be someone competing for wins, there's no X factor for him that would keep him in that ride long term.
Do you think, like, Kyle Busch was at Hendrick for 3 years, Casey Mears was at it for 3 years, I think, right?
4 years. Two.
So
Two.
Oh,
Two.
yeah.
Okay, I know Kyle Busch's situation was different, but Bowman reminds me a little bit of Casey Mears. He's better than Casey Mears, though.
Mm-hmm.
But
I can
it's
see
just
that.
like the performance isn't there, and if somebody like you guys have been saying comes up that's young that has sponsorship, if I was Rick Hendrick, I would probably pick them over Bowman if Bowman hasn't done anything in another year.
So basically Gregson.
Yeah,
No,
but Gregson hasn't done anything. Like, yeah, he has. But he's what?
He has money though. That's all you really need nowadays, right?
well,
Yeah.
I don't know if I agree with. I think Alex Bowman is really good. I think he went last year into an 88 car that sucked for 2 years and made it a top 12 car. Like Alex Bowman is really good. I think if and we're acting like this hypothetical, like after 2020, if he can't find a sponsor, at least for me personally, I don't think he'd lose that ride because he's not talented enough for it. I think Alex Bowman's better than a lot of these other young guys. I think the problem I have with him is he's 26 in a world where the hot new thing are all these 22-year-olds. Like, look at the rookie battle this year. It's Daniel Hemrick and Ryan Preece. They're in their late 20s. Nobody's talking about them. Nobody's talking about them because they're in their late 20s. They're old news. They haven't won a race. Daniel Hemrick didn't win anything in the Xfinity or Truck Series. Ryan Preece had a couple good races with Gibbs, but we don't talk about that because he wasn't even full-time in Xfinity last year. We talk about the William Byrons and the Chase Elliots because they're actively winning or have won recently in lower series and won consistently. So they look like the hot prospects. They are the first-round draft picks. Alex Bowman was in the Cup Series for a few years in bad equipment, so he was there. We knew he was there, but we don't talk about him. That's why I compare him more to like a Martin Truex Jr., where I think Alex Bowman has tons of talent. I think Alex Bowman is really good. He just flies under the radar, and I think he spent a lot of his early years in not great equipment. And I think as his career will go on, if he gets a good ride, if he continues to stay in good equipment, I think he can eventually be like a Martin Truex Jr., a guy who later in his career starts winning races and that fans will flock to then and act like, oh, I was a fan all along. I think that's going to be how Alex Bowman is. I think that's similar to Truex's story, and I think that's just his biggest problem. He's a great driver. He's just not marketable, mainly for the reason that he doesn't have a super outlandish personality. And secondly, he's old compared to these other young guys that everyone's talking about. Nobody talks about the 28-year-old rookie anymore. They're all talking about the 20-year-old rookie because that's more impressive now. And it's not his fault. It just is the way it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that was a good discussion on Alex Bowman.
So do you guys think he'll be, or who? That's a dumb question. I was gonna ask who do you think would emerge as a potential sponsor for him? But that's a dumb question. There's like a billion companies in the world.
Hey, go Daddy back. Go Daddy back.
Go Daddy. Yeah, that's a good question. What company out there would you want to sponsor Alex Bowman?
Go Daddy.
It's
Microsoft.
tough because
Microsoft.
there's nothing to like. What is there to sponsor him? Like, there's nothing about him that makes me sort of relate to who I can sponsor. Like, I can see Kyle Busch as Rowdy and relate him to Monster, I guess, but I don't know what Hooters.
Well, Jarrett mentioned potatoes, so bland potatoes. I mean, is there a potato sponsor out there? I don't know.
I'm gonna look up Strength and
The
Unity.
stream just went offline.
Yeah, it did. My internet just crapped out. I was telling the guys beforehand. It might come back. We might be okay. We'll see.
Okay.
It's still offline.
Yeah, we'll see.
Oh, we hit an hour and a half.
No, I think we're good. We're back. At least on my screen, we're back. How's it going, y'all? Sorry for the
We're back.
sorry for the brief delay. Oh, and we got a super chat right as it happened too. Flying Gator sent $1.99 and said Bowman in a GoDaddy commercial would be the best. Yeah, that would be fun.
especially in the mid 2000s type of GoDaddy commercials.
Oh yes.
Oh, yeah, with Danica.
Like,
No, but I guess we can kind of wrap it up at this point, though. And if we want to just we're not going to do our suck and dark horse picks, but if we just want to do like picks for Iowa, I guess, and call it a night.
Yeah,
Sure.
let's do it. There's trucks and Xfinity this weekend, so
Yeah. So
me and Eminem can make our picks since we're not going to be on next week for Cup.
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
yeah, dude.
I'll go first for Truck Xfinity Trucks. Harrison Burton is going to get a win. Finally. After Greg Biffle wins, he's finally going to show up a week later. And Xfinity's Tyler Reddick.
For trucks, I got Sauter winning. In Xfinity, I got Christopher Bell winning. And I guess I'll just do Cup as well. Were we racing? Oh yeah, Sonoma. Shoot, actually, I don't know that one. That's a new layout. I'll pick Kyle Busch.
I'll pick Clint Boyer.
Bush is a safe pick at a new track for sure.
That's gonna be my safe pick for
Yeah.
the rest of the season. If I don't know who to pick, I'm like, Kyle Busch.
Yeah.
All right. I guess I'll go next just and do Truck and Xfinity just back to back if that's cool.
Yeah.
Truck Series, just for the story, I can see it happening now. I'm picking Ross Chastain just for the story.
Yeah.
And for Xfinity, I'm gonna pick Justin Allgaier. Like he seems to have Iowa pretty figured out.
So my picks for trucks, I'm going with Brett Moffitt, and then Xfinity. I'm gonna go on a limb and say, Gregson's been good the past few weeks, so he gets his first career win. There you go.
Oh goodness.
I thought
It
you
might be a
were
long
saying
shot. That might be a long shot, but hey, go ahead.
I like the Chastain pick, but my problem is I think when he does get a win, I think it's going to have to be at a bigger, faster track where the draft helps a little bit. I just don't think that car is really good enough to match up on a short track, but maybe I'll be wrong because I want Chastain to win. For trucks, I actually think Todd Gilliland's going to win. I think Kyle Busch Motorsports obviously the best equipment, and I actually thought last week at Texas he Gillen had a top 2 or top 3 car. He took himself out by being overly aggressive. At a shorter track, you can maybe get away with that aggressiveness a little bit more. I'll go out on a limb, and I'll say Todd Gillen wins in the trucks. Xfinity, I'll stick with Toyota. I think Christopher Bell wins. I think he won at Iowa the last time they were at Iowa. Or he won one of the Iowa races last year. I don't know if it was.
He won the last time.
Yeah. So it's been a while since he's won. I think he's due. So, yeah, that's our picks, right? Is that everyone's?
Yep.
I think so.
Oh, goodness.
I think
Well,
we
we are.
picks.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. Danny probably just picks Alex Bowman, even if he's not in the race.
Yeah. Alex Bowman for everything at this point.
Yeah, well, I guess, Jarrett, I know, let me see. Do we have any other big news, any other big stories that we wanted to cover before we start wrapping up here?
No, most of the other ones are just small little asides that we basically talked about, whether on it or just sort of having to do with it.
Wow, we are really good
Maybe-
at this.
Maybe talk about Gibbs and Edwards. Or is that
Really quick, Evan Nicola said that we missed a super chat by Flying Gator.
No, I read that one. I read the
Okay.
Flying Gator one when we came back.
He read it when we came back on
So,
stream.
yeah, some people might not have seen it because I read it like immediately after we came back.
Yeah.
I guess we can just sort of tell everyone where we'll be next week and who our guest is.
Definitely.
And, all right, so next week we'll be on Darian's channel, I believe.
Yeah.
Black Flags Matter, so make sure you're there at the same time that we'll start tonight. We'll more than likely have everything figured out that we had with this deal. And our guest will be Slap Shoes. He is a really, really good. He just exploded in this past few months here on YouTube. Makes awesome little documentary kind of videos and different. Just each video is different each week, and it's really fun to see what he puts out next. So he'll be on to talk with us. Should be a really fun one next Wednesday, and while we won't have a race to talk about, we'll have a race to look forward to with Sonoma, the new layout, and looking at DW's last race as an announcer, at least, if not forever, for a long time.
That's true, yeah. That'll be. I'm sure that'll be emotional. I'm sure Fox will play that one up.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you know they are.
And rightfully so to an extent.
Of course,
He's
yeah.
had a great career. He's had a lot of great moments, but you just never trust Fox.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's a sweet deal. So we got a great show lined up for next week. And yeah, I want to thank everyone for watching tonight, despite the minor technical difficulties. I know early on the camera stuff wasn't working, and I know my internet's on the fritz. Hopefully get that fixed. I know Darian likely a little more reliable. Hopefully next week we'll see.
I got a whole cable, so I'm good.
Oh, sweet deal.
Hopefully no Wi-Fi issues anymore.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I got a
yeah.
whole cable, man.
So hopefully next week you guys will be back to seeing our beautiful faces, not this horribly doctored image of me you probably see right now. But yeah. Thanks everyone for watching tonight. It's on behalf of all of our hosts. Oh, actually, I'll shout out our guests here. I put their links to their YouTube channels down in the description. M&M Cup Series and NASCAR on MDK. Do you guys have any other like Twitter accounts? Anything you guys want to shout out? I'll let MDK go first.
I mean, Twitter's the same thing at NASCAR and MDK as well as Instagram. Thank you for having me on, and yeah, this was a lot of fun. I'd like to do this again sometime.
Definitely.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. Yeah, my Twitter's at MCS Stop Motion, so MCS Stop Motions. And I had fun, guys. Thanks for inviting me.
Thanks for
Yeah,
being
no
on,
problem,
guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was great having you guys on, and yeah, put links to both of their channels down in the description, so everyone go hit subscribe if you're not already. You definitely should be. But yeah, on behalf of the rest of the stream, the rest of the group, I'm Eric. Thank you guys so much for watching. Have a great rest of your week.
Green flag, green flag. Our roll, our roll.